Have you ever just stopped and wondered, why is life so often a struggle? No matter how hard we try, it feels like we're constantly fighting something. Well, today we are diving deep into a really powerful answer to that question, coming from a talk by Buddhist master Luangpu Pramote Pamojjo. And this isn't just philosophy, It's more like a practical roadmap for understanding your own mind and finding a real way out of that cycle of suffering.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, but it still feels like you're just pushing a boulder uphill. We're always chasing after happiness, but it seems like stress and disappointment and just plain old pain are always waiting for us right around the corner. So what gives? Why is that? Think about relationships. We pour so much of ourselves into them, thinking that love is going to be the thing that finally fixes everything. But then, it ends. And that heartbreak can feel like it's the only thing in the universe. It just totally consumes you.
Or what about our careers? We build our entire identity, our sense of security around a job. We think, okay, if I can just hold on to this, I'm going to be fine. And then a layoff hits. And suddenly, it's not just about the money anymore. Your whole sense of who you are gets completely shaken up.
But here's the real kicker, the paradox of it all. It's not just the bad stuff that brings us pain. Suffering can come from the things we love the most. I mean, the incredible joy you get from a pet turns into this profound, heavy grief when they're gone. It really does feel like a trap, doesn't it? Like no matter which way you turn, suffering just finds a way to get in.
So this constant struggle, that's exactly where this teaching starts. It doesn't give you any easy answers or try to pretend this tough reality doesn't exist. Nope, it says, before we can even think about a solution, we have to be willing to look the problem square in the face.
And what is that problem? It's really simple. Suffering. This teaching says suffering isn't just, a side effect of life. It's the main event. It's the central underlying issue for all of us. That heartbreak, losing your job, the grief, they're not all different problems. They're just different masks that the same fundamental challenge wears.
Okay, so if suffering is the core problem, what do we usually do about it? Well, this is where we all make the same huge mistake. Our first instinct is always to try and fix the outside world, right? To rearrange all the furniture out there to try and make ourselves feel better on the inside.
But this teaching says the real root of the problem is way, way deeper. It all comes down to this one key concept, aviyaksha, which we translate as ignorance. But this is so important. It's not about being dumb or uneducated. It's a very specific kind of blindness, a deep misunderstanding of how our own minds actually work. And according to this path, that single misunderstanding is the source of all our suffering.
Just look at this chain reaction. It's the entire diagnosis right here. It all starts with ignorance, that misunderstanding of reality. That ignorance then creates this constant wanting, this restless craving for things to be different, this pushing away of pain and pulling pleasure closer. And it's that wanting, that constant fight with reality that directly causes all the friction and stress we call suffering. It's a simple sequence, but man is powerful.
And this is the absolute game changer. We spend our whole lives pointing fingers at the outside world. We blame the breakup, we blame our boss, we blame the economy. We're always saying, if only that would change, then I'd finally be happy. But this teaching just flips that whole script upside down. It says the source of your suffering was never out there. It's always been in here, in the way your own mind is wired to operate.
So if the problem is inside our own minds, well, that's where we have to look. But what are we even looking for? This brings us to the most radical, most mind-bending part of this whole teaching. The idea of taking apart the very thing we feel is most real, our sense of self. The Buddha's own summary of this is incredibly direct. He didn't just say, sickness and old age or suffering. He went right to the heart of our experience. He said the 5 aggregates of clinging, which is just a fancy way of saying the building blocks of me, are suffering. Not that they cause suffering, but that our very act of clinging to them is the suffering itself.
So what are these aggregates? It's actually pretty straightforward. Think of them as 5 buckets that hold every single thing you could call your experience. You've got your physical body, you've got your feelings, good, bad, neutral. You've got perception, which is how you label things. Then there are mental formations, all your thoughts, your opinions, your intentions. And finally, there's consciousness, just that basic awareness of it all. That's it. That is the entire package of what we call me.
So from these 5 constantly changing processes, our mind creates this incredibly powerful illusion, the sense of a solid, permanent me sitting right in the middle of it all. We feel like we're the CEO, sitting in the control room of our life. But is that CEO really there? Let's use an analogy to take a closer look. This car analogy is just perfect. You've got a bunch of parts, an engine, wheels, seats, and you put them all together and your mind slaps a label on it, car. But what happens if you take it all apart? Where did the car go? It's nowhere, right? Because car was just a convenient name, a concept. It wasn't a real solid thing. The profound point here is that our self works the exact same way. It's just a label we put on this temporary collection of body, feelings, and thoughts. And if we can learn to see those individual parts clearly, the solid self we're so obsessed with just dissolves. Okay, I know, that is a pretty mind-bending idea. And it's one thing to get the car analogy in your head, but how do we actually see this for ourselves? This is where all that theory turns into actual practice. This is the how-to part.
And this is such a critical point. We could read 1,000 books about this, we could memorize all the terms, and we could sound like an expert at a dinner party. But the teaching is crystal clear. That is all just secondhand knowledge. Freedom is not found in a book. It's found in seeing directly and becoming a kind of scientist of your own moment-to-moment experience. And you want to know the best part? This science doesn't require some fancy lab or a PhD. The practice itself is radically simple. It's not about forcing your mind into some special state. It's just about bringing a light, curious, and totally non-judgmental attention to whatever is happening right now.
So what does that actually look like? It is as simple as feeling the sensation of your breath coming into your body, noticing the feeling of your feet on the floor. When a thought pops up about your to-do list, you don't fight it or push it away, you just gently notice. Ah, thinking. It's not about controlling your mind, it's about getting to know it. And something really amazing starts to happen when you do this over and over. It's not like you are trying to separate from your body. The mind just starts to see things more clearly on its own. It starts to see a difference between the awareness that's watching and the body that's being watched. You start to see the body breathing, and a little space opens up, and a realization just clicks. Oh, that's just the body doing its thing. It's a process, it's not me. The very first layer of that self-illusion just starts to peel away.
This whole process of seeing more and more clearly leads, step by step, to the ultimate goal of this entire path: real, genuine freedom. So what does that freedom actually look like? What happens at the end of this whole journey?
Well, the insight just keeps getting deeper. It starts with seeing the body isn't self, but then it goes further. You start to see that the body's inherently unreliable and stressful. It gets sick, it gets old. Then that same insight turns towards the mind itself, and you see that it's also just this chaotic, uncontrollable flow. And here is the great paradox. The practice isn't about running away from suffering. It's about turning around and looking right at it, seeing it so clearly, so completely, that the mind finally just stops fighting. And in that moment of total acceptance, the clinging that caused all the trouble in the first place just lets go.
This state of total release has a name, nibbana, and it's so important to get this. It's not some kind of heaven you go to when you die. It's described as a state of mind that's accessible right here, right now. It's the moment that inner fire of craving and pushing away finally goes out, and what's left is just a profound, unshakable peace. It's the end of the struggle. And that brings us right back to the beginning. We spend our entire lives convinced that freedom is going to come from getting something: the right partner, the perfect job, more money. This ancient teaching offers a completely radical alternative. What if true freedom isn't found in gaining anything, but in letting go? So it invites us to look, really honestly, at all the things we're clinging to so tightly, our beliefs, our opinions, our ideas about who we are, and to ask a very simple but very powerful question. Just for this moment, what could you release?